Some betrayals arrive with a scream. Mine arrived with a text message while I was refilling the bird feeder on a Sunday morning, the kind of quiet Ohio morning where the only sound is a woodpecker working the oak tree and coffee going cold on the porch rail. My daughter's name lit up my screen. Dad, we've decided. The dealership goes up for sale Monday. You have until the end of the month to clear out your office. I read it twice. Then, I set my phone face down on the rail and finished filling the feeder, because some things deserve to be finished before you let your whole world tilt sideways. My name is Walt Ferris. I'm 68 years old, and for 41 years I've owned and run Ferris Motors, a used car dealership on Route 30 outside Mansfield, Ohio, the kind of lot with a hand-painted sign and a service bay I built with my own two hands the summer Reagan was inaugurated. I raised two kids on that lot, my daughter Renata and my son Cole, teaching them to check oil levels before they could ride a bike without training wheels. My wife Doreen used to bring them out there in strollers, set up a playpen behind the front counter, and tell customers, "That's the next generation of Ferris Motors right there, snoring through your test drive." She said it like a promise. I believed her. Doreen's been gone 6 years now. Ovarian cancer, diagnosed in February, gone by October. I don't talk about that part much because it still catches in my throat like a fishbone, but you need to know it. Because everything that happened after only makes sense once you understand what a man does with grief. He never let himself finish feeling. Welcome to the channel. By the way, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight. Because I like knowing who's out there in the dark with me. The dealership everybody in Richland County knows about is Ferris Motors on Route 30. I bought that half-acre lot in 1985 for $18,000, back when the previous owner thought I was throwing my life savings into a ditch. I told him, "Give it 15 years. He laughed and shook my hand anyway. That lot became the family's whole orbit. Every 4th of July cookout happened in that gravel lot. String lights hung between the light poles. Every homecoming photo got taken in front of the big painted sign. When Doreen got sick, Renata and Cole both worked the front desk after school, so I could drive her to Columbus for treatments. We didn't talk about it much on those drives. We didn't need to. When she passed, that dealership became sacred ground to me, the last place I could still hear her laugh over the sound of an engine turning over. What I never told my kids, what I never told a living soul except one man, was that 8 months after I buried Doreen, when the grief still had teeth, I bought a second lot. But I'll get to that. By this past spring, Renata was 41, twice divorced, currently married to a man named Denny, who wore cologne like it was armor, and had never once, in 6 years, asked me a single question about the business that fed him. Cole was 37, soft where Renata was sharp, the kind of son who agrees with whoever spoke last because conflict made his stomach hurt since he was in diapers. I loved them. I want that understood clear as a bell, before anything else. I loved them the way you love something you built with your own blood and your own back. But I'd watched something shift in Renata over the last few years, slow. The way a roof starts leaking before you ever see the stain on the ceiling. She'd started bringing up the business's future at Thanksgiving. Started asking how much the lot was worth, just out of curiosity. Started steering every phone call, sooner or later, back toward numbers. I noticed. I just didn't say anything yet. That particular Sunday, cool enough that I needed a flannel over my shirt, one of those Ohio mornings where the fog sits low over the cornfields like it's got nowhere better to be, my phone had already delivered its blow at 9:02 a.m. But what I haven't told you yet is everything that led up to that text. Everything that made my own daughter bold enough to give her 68-year-old father a deadline like I was a tenant behind on rent. It started 4 days earlier. Renata called on a Wednesday evening. Her voice had that particular register, the rehearsed one, the one she used to use in high school right before telling me she'd wrecked the car. "Hey, Dad. Too casual. Renata." I muted the ballgame. "You're calling late." "Yeah, listen." She cleared her throat, and I knew that sound. I'd known it since she was 14, and had something to confess. "Cole and I have been talking. Here we go." "Okay," I said. "About what?" "About the dealership." A pause. "Route 30. I set my remote down slow. What about it? Dad, look, you're 68. You're out there 6 days a week by yourself most of the time. The insurance has gone up twice this year. The lot maintenance is. When's the last time you resurfaced the back lot? 2 summers ago. Right. But Dad, her voice went flat and businesslike. Say what you're saying. Another throat clear. Cole and I think it's time to sell. You think it's time? I repeated. It makes financial sense, Dad. Property values on Route 30 have gone through the roof, with the new distribution center going in. We had a guy look at it, a commercial broker, Dale Whitfield out of Ashland. He thinks we could get 1.1, maybe 1.2 million for the land and the business combined. We had a broker. When did you talk to a broker, Renata? Silence. Dad, we wanted information before we brought it to you, so you'd have the full picture. The full picture. My daughter got an appraisal before she got my permission. Let that settle on you the way it settled on me. And Cole's on board with this? I asked. Yeah, Dad. We both. Put him on. What? Put your brother on the phone. Shuffling. Muffled voices. Then Cole. Quieter. Already sounding sorry, before he'd said a single word. Hey, Dad. Cole. This your idea? We talked about it together. That's not what I asked. A long pause. Renata brought it up first, but I think financially it could. Okay. I picked the remote back up. I've heard enough. Dad, don't be like that. We're just trying to look out for. I'll call you back. Dad, I hung up. I sat in that recliner for the better part of an hour. Just me. The muted television flickering blue across the room. And the kind of silence that has real weight to it. The kind that presses down on your sternum like a hand. Was I angry? Not yet. Was I hurt? Son. I was gutted. 68 years old, and my own children had gone behind my back, hired a commercial broker, and started pricing out something I'd built with these two hands before either of them could walk. But here's the thing about being 68 nobody warns you about. You stop reacting. You start responding. There's a world of difference between those two words. I got up, made myself a cup of decaf I didn't need, sat down at the kitchen table Doreen and I bought at an estate sale back in '91, and opened the bottom drawer of the hutch, the one Doreen used to call my serious drawer, because nothing lighthearted ever came out of it. I pulled out a manila envelope. Inside was a deed, not the Route 30 deed. My kids knew about that one. This deed had a different address, a different county, an entirely different story. I read it slow, even though I had every word memorized by now. And for the first time all evening, I smiled. 4 days later, came that 9-2 text. Renata's words, cool, decided. The words of a woman who thought the matter was already closed. Dad, we've decided. The dealership goes up for sale Monday. You have until the end of the month to clear out your office. I let 2 hours pass before I called her back, because I wanted her to sit in the silence the way I'd been sitting in mine. When she finally picked up, I said, Renata, which lot do you think I'm sitting on right now? There's a particular kind of quiet that isn't empty. It's loaded, the way the air goes heavy, right before a summer storm breaks. That was the quiet Renata gave me after that question. I counted it out 1, 2, 3 before she spoke. Dad, what you're at, Route 30. I didn't say that. Then where are you? I'm exactly where I need to be, sweetheart. I leaned back in my chair, and it creaked the way old furniture does. Unhurried, settled, sure of itself. You go right ahead and list Route 30. You and Dale Whitfield out of Ashland. You do all of that. Dad, you're not making sense. I make plenty of sense. You're just not used to me listening. Not used to me talking back. I let that hang a second. We'll talk soon. I hung up again. Let her sit with that. Now let me tell you about the second lot, because this is where the story turns on its hinge. In the June after I buried Doreen, when the grief was still fresh enough to taste on the back of my tongue, I got in my truck with no destination in mind. Just me, a full tank, and Ohio doing what Ohio does in early summer green and aching and beautiful in a way that almost hurts to look at when you're mourning. I ended up 31 miles east of Mansfield, out past Loudonville, down a county road where the hemlocks grow so thick they swallow the afternoon light whole. There was a property for sale, a small independent lot, with a repair garage already standing on it, 3 bays, a lift, good bones, sitting right off a state highway that fed straight into 3 different townships. Anybody in the used car business will tell you that location is the whole ballgame, and this location was close to perfect. I bought it that August for $190,000. Doreen and I had been savers our whole married life. We drove our cars into the ground, never financed a single thing we couldn't pay off outright. Renata used to call that philosophy old-fashioned. Renata thought a lot of things. I put that Loudonville property, garage and all, inside an irrevocable trust, the Doreen Ferris Family Trust, myself named lifetime beneficiary. Everything handled by an estate attorney out of Columbus, not the local firm my kids would ever think to check with. I told exactly one living person about that lot. Not Renata, not Cole. My oldest friend, Sal Petrocelli, retired county auditor, 71 years old, a man who understood property records the way some men understand scripture chapter, verse, and consequence. Sal kept that secret for 7 years and never once asked me why. That's what a real friend looks like, in case nobody's ever shown you. My kids spent those same 7 years circling Route 30, asking about my plans, eyeing that gravel lot like an inheritance they already had a claim on. And the entire time, the real prize was sitting 31 miles east. Quiet, patient, appreciating in value, waiting. Same as me. The listing hit the commercial market on a Thursday. I know because Sal called me himself. Walt. His voice had that particular tone, the one that means, brace yourself. Route 30 just went active on the commercial listing site. Renata Ferris named as authorized seller, asking 1.15. I exhaled slow. How fast is it moving? 2 inquiries already. That corridor's hot with the distribution center going in. Dale Whitfield knows what he's doing. This could close in under a month. Let it run, Sal, I said. You sure about that, Walt? I'm sure. If they get all the way to a closing, then they get all the way to a closing, Sal. Let it run. He went quiet a moment. You're a cold man sometimes, Walter Ferris. I'm a prepared man, I said. There's a difference. I want to pause here and tell you exactly what Renata didn't know, what neither of my kids knew. Yes, I'd put both their names on the Route 30 deed years back, co-owners alongside me, an arrangement I set up thinking it would simplify things down the road, back when I still trusted that road to stay straight. What I never explained to them, because why would I, back then, was that in Ohio, joint ownership doesn't mean any single owner can authorize a sale on their own. You need every name on that deed signing off on the closing documents. Every single one. Meaning me. Dale Whitfield, the broker out of Ashland, either didn't know that or didn't bother to verify it. He took Renata's word that the family stood united. He listed the property. He booked showings. He had a signed offer. Inside 16 days, a young couple, Marcus and Priya Anand, relocating from Columbus for the husband's new job at the distribution center, looking to open their own small fleet sales operation. Good people, from what I could tell. Wrong deal entirely. The offer landed at $1.12 million even. Renata called me practically vibrating through the phone. Dad, we got an offer. A strong one. 1.12. Dad, did you hear me? $1.12 million. I heard you, Renata. We just need your signature on the... She stopped herself. I could hear the gears grinding behind her silence. The exact moment a person realizes the room they walked into isn't shaped the way they expected. On the closing paperwork. There it was. Do you, I said, need my signature? Dad, it's just a formality. You're a co-owner, so technically they need everybody's name on it. It's just how it works. I let that breathe a moment. Let her hear her own words land back on her. Renata, I said finally. Do you remember what I asked you last week? What? I asked which lot you thought I was sitting on. Dad, what does that have to do with everything? I said. It has everything to do with everything. I'll call you Friday. The Anons needed an answer by Friday. Friday came. I drove down to Columbus. I had a 10 a.m. sit down with my estate attorney, a sharp, unhurried woman named Corinne Ashby, 52 years old. The kind of lawyer who enjoyed a well-built legal surprise the way other people enjoy a good crossword. I laid the entire situation across her conference table. The Route 30 listing, the offer, Renata's calls, the deed structure, all of it. Corinne leaned back, fingers steepled, studying me the way a chess player studies a board 3 moves out from checkmate. Walt, she said slowly, they listed a property they can't legally sell without you, correct? And the buyers are sitting on an accepted offer waiting for a closing date, correct? And your daughter called your signature a formality, her exact word. A small, precise smile crossed Corinne's face, not a big one. And the Loudonville property, irrevocable trust, Doreen Ferris Family Trust, recorded in Richland County, untouchable. Untouchable, I confirmed. She nodded slowly. So what exactly do you want done here, Walt? I folded my hands on her conference table. I want to let it run all the way to the closing table, I said. I want Renata to shake that young couple's hand. I want Cole standing there in his good sport coat. I want Dale Whitfield to lay his whole folder out on that table like it means something. I paused. And then I want you to make one phone call. Corinne looked at me a long moment. You planned this, she said. I prepared for the possibility. I corrected her. There's a difference. She laughed, an actual laugh. Walter Ferris, you are a genuinely terrifying man. I'm a prepared man, Corinne. She pulled her legal pad closer. All right. Let's talk about that phone call. The closing was set for a Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. A title company in Ashland called Buckeye Land Title, the kind of clean, quiet office where enormous amounts of money change hands without a single raised voice. Renata had called me twice over that weekend, just to confirm I'd show up once, to ask if I needed directions. Directions. 35 minutes from my own house. She thought the old man might be losing his grip. I told her I'd be there. I arrived 12 minutes early. Renata walked in 3 minutes before 9, wearing a sharp charcoal blazer she'd clearly bought for the occasion. Cole came in right behind her, hands jammed in his pockets, eyes darting around the room the way Cole's eyes always moved when he was uncomfortable in his own skin. The Anons were already seated, pleasant-looking, Marcus with a firm handshake and the bright, exhausted energy of a man who'd been picturing this day for weeks. Dale Whitfield sat at the head of the table, with his folder open, efficient and ready to go. The title officer, a woman named Sherry Blevins, had every document stacked in neat, color-tabbed order. I sat in the corner with my coffee. Renata saw me and visibly relaxed, the tension dropping right out of her shoulders. She actually smiled the smile of a woman who believes she's already won. Dad. She crossed the room, hand out. Glad you made it. I shook it. Wouldn't miss it. So we're good? We're good, Renata, I said quietly. She went back to her seat. Sherry Blevins began her opening remarks. Dale Whitfield uncapped his pen. Marcus Anand leaned forward. Ready. And then my phone buzzed against my leg. A text from Corinne Ashby. Ready when you are. I stood up. Every head in that room turned toward me. Walt? Sherry said. Is everything... I apologize, I said, calm as a Tuesday morning ought to be. There's a call I need to take. My attorney needs a word with someone in this room. I looked directly at Dale Whitfield. Specifically you. Whitfield blinked. Me? You. Renata half rose, out of her chair. Dad, what is... Sit down, Renata. Something in my voice. Something final. She sat. I stepped into the hallway and called Corinne. 30 seconds later, I walked back in and handed my phone across the table to Dale Whitfield. I watched his face while Corinne Ashby talked. Watched the color drain right out of it. Watched the pen roll out of his fingers and stop against the folder. Whitfield said 4 words into my phone. Say that again, please. A pause. Then nothing. He handed the phone back to me. Looked at Renata. Looked down at the paperwork stacked in front of him. Looked at Marcus Anand, whose expression had already tipped from excitement into alarm. Miss Ferris, Whitfield said, and now he was talking to Renata, not to me. This closing cannot proceed. Priya Anand's chair scraped back. I'm sorry. What? The property can't legally transfer without unanimous co-owner consent, fully documented and verified. There's a structural problem with this transaction that should have been caught at the listing stage. Should have been caught at the listing stage. That's realtor language for this is on me. Renata turned toward me slowly, the way you turn when you already know exactly what you're about to see. Dad. I took a sip of my coffee and let the silence do what silence does when it's got something worth saying. You know what your mother used to tell me? I said. She'd say, Walt, you think 10 moves ahead, and you never warn a soul. I set the cup down. She meant it as a complaint. Turns out it was a compliment. Cole put his face in his hands. Marcus Anand was already on his own phone, calling his lawyer. Dale Whitfield sat staring at his folder like it had personally betrayed him. And Renata, just stared at me. My oldest child, 41 years old, in a blazer she'd bought for a closing that was never going to close. What did you do? She whispered. I smiled. The first full, unhurried smile I'd let myself have in weeks. Sweetheart, I said, we haven't even gotten to the part about Loudonville yet. She didn't know about Loudonville. Nobody in that family did. And right there, that's where everything changes. If you've stuck with me this far, drop a comment and let me know what you think is coming. Hit that like button while you're at it, and make sure you're subscribed, because this next part is the whole reason I sat down to tell you this story. There are moments in a man's life that don't announce themselves. They don't come with warning sirens or fanfare. They just arrive, quiet and already decided, and all a person can do is stand still long enough to let them land. This was one of those moments. That title office in Ashland had gone from a closing to something closer to a crime scene in under 5 minutes. Not the kind with tape and flashing lights. The other kind, where everyone in the room understands slowly, together, that something has gone badly and irreversibly wrong, and the only question left hanging in the air is, who's going to answer for it? Marcus Anand was standing now. Priya had a hand on his forearm, the way a wife does when she's trying to keep her husband from saying something that ends up quoted in a deposition later. Marcus was working hard to stay composed. I want to understand something, he said, voice level and careful. Are you telling me this doesn't close today? Sherry Blevins looked like she wanted to fold herself into her own chair and disappear. Mr. Anand, there's an ownership consent issue that we've been under contract for 3 weeks, Marcus said, composure fraying at the edges now. We paid for the inspection. We paid for the appraisal. My daughter already picked out which bedroom she wants. Marcus, Priya's voice, low. We drove up here from Columbus this morning at 6 a.m. Dale Whitfield raised both hands. Mr. Anand, I completely understand your frustration, and I promise we're going to get to the bottom of... The bottom, Marcus said, turning on him now. The flat eyes of a man doing math he doesn't like the answer to. Of what? Exactly? That you listed a property you apparently didn't have the legal authority to list? The room went dead silent. Whitfield opened his mouth, closed it again. I almost felt bad for the man. Almost. Renata hadn't moved from her chair, still in her blazer, still staring down at the table like it might open up and offer her an exit. Cole sat beside her, hands folded, looking at nothing in particular, wearing the expression of a man who'd followed somebody else's directions right off the edge of the map. I stayed in my corner. I didn't gloat. I didn't grandstand. I drank my coffee and waited, because the story wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Corinne Ashby walked through the door at 9:22, having driven straight from Columbus. Sharp navy suit, leather portfolio under one arm, the unhurried energy of someone exactly where she'd planned to be. She shook my hand first, then set her portfolio on the table, opened it, and laid 2 documents side by side in the center of the room, the way a dealer lays out cards. Good morning, everyone, she said. And she meant everyone. The Anands, Whitfield, Sherry, Renata, Cole, all of it. My name is Corinne Ashby. I represent Mr. Ferris. I'd like to walk everyone through exactly where things stand, because clarity is going to serve this room better than confusion right now. She tapped the first document. This is the deed for the Route 30 property. Joint ownership between Walter Ferris, Renata Ferris, and Cole Ferris, established in 2011. Under Ohio law, a jointly held commercial property requires the written consent of every titled owner for the transfer of title. That consent was never obtained from Walter Ferris. She looked at Whitfield. The listing was premature. This contract is unenforceable. This closing does not happen today. The room stayed very quiet. Marcus Anand, credit where it's due, seemed to understand he was watching something that had nothing to do with him at all. He put his hand over Priya's. She nodded. Miss Ashby, Marcus said, composed again. What are our options here? Corinne turned to him with the full attention of someone who respects a good question. You have a legitimate breach of contract claim against the listing broker and potentially against the sellers, meaning Renata and Cole Ferris, for entering a purchase agreement on a property they had no unilateral authority to sell. Your inspection costs, your appraisal fees, and any related expenses should be recoverable. She paused. I'd suggest speaking with your own attorney, which I suspect you already are. Marcus glanced at his phone. Already dialing, he said. Corinne snapped her portfolio shut, and that was that. Dale Whitfield left first, shaking no one's hand, saying nothing except a low, tight word to Sherry Blevins about following up Monday. The door closed behind him, the way a door closes on a man who knows an unpleasant call with his broker is waiting for him in the parking lot. The Anons left second. Marcus stopped at the door and turned back, and he looked at me, not at Renata, not at Corinne, at me. I'm sorry this happened to you, he said. I nodded. Enjoy whatever place you find, Marcus. You seem like good people. He almost smiled. Almost. Then they were gone. Sherry Blevins gathered her paperwork with the quiet efficiency of a woman who'd watched deals collapse before and knew lingering never helped anybody. She was out inside 3 minutes. Then it was just us. Me, Corinne, Renata, Cole. Corinne caught my eye. I gave her a small nod, and she excused herself into the hallway, pulling the door shut behind her with the quiet click of someone who knows exactly when a room needs to be left alone. Renata spoke first. So that's it? Her voice had changed completely. The confidence had drained clean out of it. What was underneath was something raw, younger, almost familiar to me. You let it get all the way here. You let us list it. Let us get an offer. Let us sit at this table. Yes, Dad. Yes, Renata, I did. She pushed back from the table, stood, and walked to the window, standing there with her back to me, arms crossed, looking out at the parking lot. You could have stopped this at any point, she said. I could have. You could have called me after that first phone call and said, Renata, you cannot sell that lot without me. You could have just said that. I could have, I said again. She turned around, and I want to be careful describing what I saw on my daughter's face, because it wasn't only anger. It wasn't only embarrassment. It was something more complicated than either a woman who'd looked in a mirror and seen something she wasn't ready for. Why didn't you? She asked. I leaned forward in my chair. Because you needed to see it, I said. Not hear it. See it. All the way to the end. I held her eyes. You hired a broker before you asked your father's permission. You signed a listing agreement on a property with my name on the deed. You sent me a text telling me I had a deadline to clear out of a building I built with these 2 hands. I paused. What exactly did you think was going to happen, Renata? She had no answer for that. Sit down, I said, not unkindly, just final. She sat. I stood at the head of the table, right where Sherry Blevins had been organizing her stacks of documents 20 minutes before. And I looked at my kids, really looked at them. Renata in her charcoal blazer, Cole with his hands folded like a man sitting in a church he'd stopped believing in a long time ago. I took my time. I'm going to say some things, I said quietly. I need the both of you to just listen. Can you do that? Cole nodded right away. Renata stared at the table, then nodded once. Slow. Good. I pulled out the chair at the head of the table and sat down. After all, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to be eye level with them. Father to children, not plaintiff to defendants. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I'll be at that lot 6 days a week until my knees give out completely. You're welcome there. Both of you. That hasn't changed, and it's not going to. Cole exhaled hard, his eyes wet at the corners. Cole always felt things first and thought about them second. That was never his worst quality. Not by a long shot. Renata, I folded my hands on the table. The Anons are going to have grounds to sue. Not me. Not Cole. though his name might get pulled in depending on how their attorney structures it. Mostly you, because you signed the listing agreement. You shook Dale Whitfield's hand. You entered a purchase contract on a property you had no unilateral right to sell. I paused. Corinne estimates their claim inspection, appraisal, travel, legal fees, some amount for emotional distress on top of it, somewhere between $20,000 and $28,000. Renata's jaw tightened. That's not a catastrophic number, I said. But it's not nothing either. I waited until she looked up at me. And Denny is going to find out. Something moved across her face fast, like a cloud shadow crossing a field. He already thinks this is done, doesn't he? You told him. $1.12 million. He's already spent some of it in his head. She said nothing, which was answer enough. That conversation belongs to you, I said. I won't get in the middle of your marriage, but I want you to understand every consequence sitting in front of you right now has your name on it. Not mine, not Cole's, yours. Because you moved first, and you moved fast, and you never once asked the man whose name was actually on that deed. Dad, I'm not finished. She closed her mouth. I turned to Cole. My youngest looked up at me with those wet-cornered eyes that had been threatening to spill since Corinne first laid the documents on the table. I know you didn't start this, I said. I know Renata came to you with a plan already half-built, and you went along with it. Because that's what you do. Because disagreement makes your stomach hurt. And your sisters always made disagreement feel like a personal attack. Cole let out a shaky breath. But son, you're 37 years old. You are not 9. You are not standing in the driveway waiting to see which way your big sister runs before you follow her. I leaned in slightly. You knew this wasn't right. I could hear it in your voice on that very first phone call. And you did it anyway. That matters. I know, Dad, he said quietly. I know. Good. I sat back. Then what I'm about to tell you won't come as a shock. I reached into my jacket pocket and set a single folded document on the table between us. I didn't unfold it right away, just let it sit there. Both of them looked at it like it might bite. I spent yesterday morning with Corinne, I said. We made a few changes. Renata's eyes came up slowly. What kind of changes? The kind a man makes when he realizes he needs to be a lot more deliberate about his own legacy. I kept my voice even, measured. The Route 30 property. The lot you listed. The one you handed strangers a set of keys to without ever asking me. I've had the deed restructured. It's held solely in my name now. Both of your names have been removed. Dead. Flat silence. Dad, Cole started. It's done, Cole. Filed with the county recorder as of yesterday afternoon. I looked at Renata. You wanted to sell it so badly. Now you can't, because it isn't yours to sell anymore. Truth is, it never really was. Now, the paperwork just finally agrees with that. Renata's hand on the table curled slowly into a fist, not aggressive, the way a person's hand curls when they're absorbing something that physically hurts to hold. And the Loudonville property, I continued. The Doreen Ferris Family Trust. I've updated the successor beneficiary designation. I finally unfolded the document and slid it to the center of the table, where they could both see it without reaching. Sal Petrocelli's granddaughter runs a small business incubator out of Columbus. They fund first-generation entrepreneurs, mechanics, tradespeople, folks who never had family money behind them to get a shop off the ground. When I'm gone, the Loudonville garage and everything on it goes to them. The air went out of that room, not all at once slow, like a tire losing pressure over a long stretch of highway. Both of them realizing at the same moment that the thing they'd circled for years, the thing that made them hire brokers and sign listing agreements and text their father an ultimatum, was never, ever going to have their names on it. Renata pushed back from the table and stood, walking to the window again. Same window, same view of the parking lot. Everything outside it looked entirely different now. An incubator, she said, flat. Cole made a small sound, not words. An incubator, I confirmed. Dad, she turned around. And here's where I want to be precise about what I saw on her face, because it wasn't rage. It wasn't the wounded entitlement of somebody who'd been caught scheming. It was something rawer than that, something I hadn't seen on Renata's face since she was 17 years old and had broken something of her mother's she couldn't fix. I didn't think it would go this far, she said. I know you didn't, I said. I thought, I thought we were helping. The insurance, the upkeep. You're out there alone. It's a lot for one man. Renata. My voice was gentle, but it didn't bend. You hired a broker before you asked your father. Whatever you tell yourself about your intentions, that's the truth of what actually happened. A person who's genuinely trying to help asks first. Cole was crying quietly now. Not loudly. Cole never did anything loudly. Just two slow tracks down his face that he didn't bother wiping away. Is there anything left? He asked. And he meant it the way a son means it, not the way an heir means it. For just that moment, he wasn't 37 in a wrinkled sport coat. He was 9 years old again, standing in the service bay with grease on his hands, looking up at me like I hung the moon. Lord, it's something what time does to people, what fear of getting left out does to grown men and women who used to be children handing their father wrenches. I looked at my oldest for a long moment. Then I laughed. Not a big laugh, not a cruel one, not the laugh of a man gloating over somebody he'd beaten. Just that particular quiet laugh that starts somewhere down deep and comes out slow. The kind Doreen used to say, meant I knew something nobody else in the room knew yet. Renata recognized it instantly. Something shifted behind her eyes. Good. She should be paying attention. I let the laugh settle, let the room go very quiet around it. Then I leaned forward and folded my hands on the table one final time. Renata. My voice was even, unhurried. The Loudonville property was appraised last month. You know what the number came back at? She said nothing, waiting. $1.6 million. The number dropped into that room like a stone into still water, and I watched the ripples move across both their faces. Renata at the window, Cole at the table. That garage, I said, letting every word have room to breathe. The one you never even knew existed, sitting off a county road east of Loudonville with 3 working bays and a hemlock forest behind it that was going to be your inheritance. Both of yours. Split even. The way your mother would have wanted it done. Silence. The kind with real physical weight. You were about to sell Route 30 for $1.12 million. Let me set that number right beside the other one, so you can feel the distance between them. I looked at Renata directly. You threw away $1.6 million to chase $560,000. Cole made a sound, not words. The sound that comes out of a person when something lands somewhere they weren't guarding. Renata didn't make any sound at all. She just stood there at that window while I watched my oldest child do math. She should have done long before she ever picked up the phone and called a commercial broker. I wasn't hiding Loudonville to punish either of you, I said quietly. I bought it because I needed something that was just mine. Something that still felt like your mother. Something nobody could put a dollar figure on. I paused. But I always meant for it to reach you both eventually. When I was gone. When it was time. All you did was get impatient, and you rushed the timeline. And in doing that, you changed the entire destination. I buttoned my flannel. $1.6 million. I said one last time not to twist any knife. Just to make certain it was real to them. Fully real, the way consequences need to be real before they mean a thing. That was going to be yours. I hope this was worth it. I picked up my coffee cup one final time. It had gone cold. I drank it anyway. Then I set the document back in my jacket pocket. You're still my children, I said. Both of you. That doesn't have a deed. That doesn't sit in any trust. Nobody can list it, sell it, or show up at a closing table and take it from you. I buttoned my jacket the rest of the way. But trust has to be earned back. Renata, call an attorney of your own today, not tomorrow. I looked at Cole. And Cole, go home and sit with what you learned about yourself today. Don't run from it. Just sit with it a while. I walked toward the door. Dad. Cole's voice cracked at the edges. I stopped, turned. We're sorry, he said, and he meant it for both of them. I saw Renata's shoulders drop slightly at the window. Her version of agreement. Her version of an apology she wasn't ready to say out loud yet. I nodded once. I know you are, I said quietly. I know. Corinne was waiting in the hallway, leaning against the wall with her portfolio under one arm, like a woman with nowhere more urgent to be. How'd it go? She asked. About like it needed to, I said. We walked out together into the late morning light. I sat in my truck a minute before starting the engine. Then I drove east, past Loudonville, down the county road where the hemlocks swallow the afternoon whole. 31 miles from Mansfield, I turned onto the gravel drive most of the world didn't know existed and pulled up in front of that little three-bay garage as the sun cut low and gold through the trees. I sat on the tailgate a while, just me, the smell of cut grass and motor oil, the kind of quiet that costs nothing and means everything. Doreen, I thought, you'd have had something to say about all of this. You'd have shaken your head at Renata, felt every bit of Cole's tears like they were your own, probably told me I was too calculated for my own good. Then you'd have handed me a sandwich anyway. I poured a little coffee from the thermos into the cap and raised it toward the tree line. This one's yours, I said out loud, to nobody and to everybody. All of it. Always was. The garage held its ground the way it always had, still, unhurried, settled, same as the man who bought it. The Route 30 lot still stands out on the highway. Same hand-painted sign, same gravel crunch under the tires. My name's the only one on the deed now, the way it probably should have always been. Renata called Dale Whitfield's Brokers Association 2 weeks later. She never told me why, but I have my guesses. A formal complaint got filed against his license with the State Real Estate Commission. I didn't file it. She did. Some consequences don't need an old man's help finding their way home. Cole called me the following Sunday, just to talk. No agenda, no angle behind it, just his voice and mine. 40 minutes of the kind of conversation we used to have before money ever got involved. That was a start. The Loudonville garage sits exactly where it's always sat, tucked inside a trust nobody can touch, waiting on people who'll actually love it the way it deserves. Sal came up for a Saturday not long ago. We sat on that tailgate and watched the light change over the hemlocks, and didn't say much of anything for a long stretch. That's the thing about real friends, and real places, and a life you built on purpose and protected fiercely. They don't need a whole lot of words. They just need to last. And this one will. If this story meant something to you, go on and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight. I'll see you on the next one.